leave my computer screen, just so you know. I have a cat in my room and she might decide to break something.
That's okay. No problem. And I have to admit, I'm looking in your background at your Nightmare Before Christmas. He's my favorite character. and I don't think I have that, but I think we have the, what are those silly little Disney things?
You're describing most of what Disney sells.
Right. They sell those little characters, those little plastic characters. Oh, I can't think of Funko Pop.
Yeah,
yes.
Funko Pop.
So I have him in Funko Pop. But anyway, okay, to get back to and I just started the recording right before I said that I should have waited just maybe 1 more minute.
Yeah, I might want to
edit that out.
Right. So anyway, to talk about, we were talking about, concerns about different countries. That's why we do kind of the research up front, because some countries do require you to put a picture, and we students have faced discrimination for different things. And I'm not saying Japan does, not at all. But you just never know. Like anywhere, you can deal with different ways that companies may judge any candidate. So I think that's why keeping an open mind and seeing where you can go is a great idea. Mm-hmm. So
the only reason going away from Japan is I read an article about a school administrator for the area. He was enforcing that anyone with a tattoo would become unemployed, basically, is what he was saying.
I'd read some more
that's
articles.
why I was like, I don't want to risk causing any problems. As much as I love the culture and the country, Japan has always been one of my favorite places in the world. That's partially because of my art history background, because their culture, they don't just do sculpture and paintings, they still do like these really beautiful handmade fans for the kabuki. They do tapestry work, ukiyo-e prints. They even do, I saw this one of a hand-stitched 7-layer kimono.
Right. Oh, beautiful. Well, you know what, Megan, is just so, and I don't know the article and I haven't heard a lot about that, but we do have a former student who from Japan. He just graduated. He's there teaching in he's a high school teacher. So if you want to maybe just connect with him, since he's on the ground, and maybe he can give you a better sense of what's really happening with schools. And I think he would be the type to be really honest with you about if, he thought there might be concerns about that or not. So that way, just to keep your options open. So I'll connect you with him. He's a really great former student. And I think you could just exchange a couple emails. You could say, I read this article, you're there in Japan. Could you let me know what you think about that? So, okay. Yeah. Awesome. And I see our speaker here finally. Okay. Awesome. Noumane, what time is it there?
Right now it's 1 a.m. 1
okay.
You look great.
Yeah, you do look great for 1 a.m. So
you look great for any time.
Right. We can't thank you enough for joining us at 1 o'clock in the morning. We really appreciate it. And hi, Maggie. Megan and Michael and I have just been kind of chatting about different countries of interest. How are you, Maggie?
I'm excellent. How are you?
Awesome. I'm great. Glad you could join us. If you'll give me just a few minutes, I want to go set an announcement in the class, even though I've spammed everybody at least 3 or 4 times this week. I want to give one final just announcement that the Zoom meeting is open. So why don't you all, Noumane, maybe you could start introducing yourself just a little bit. And I'm going to go make that announcement just to see if I catch any last minute students that might want to join us.
Just to tell you, sorry, the Zoom meeting code password that you put in the email was wrong. Sorry.
The what?
The email that you sent out for the last one, the password was wrong.
Okay.
In the last email that you sent. Sorry, I just wanted to let her know.
In an email. Okay. Well,
or the last announcement. Sorry. The announcement goes to my email. Sorry.
Right. And so how did you get in with?
I went to the main web courses on the syllabus and where it had the meeting listing and it had the correct code. Yeah, the 789466 is what they had on the announcement that was wrong. The 467 was the correct one.
Is the correct one. Okay, well, let me go make sure that that's correct. Let's see, I am recording, yes, so I can't. Hold on just a minute. So let me make sure. Yeah, the one on the syllabus is correct. Well, thank you for letting me know that. I don't know why that would not have been correct, but let me make sure I get this out to everybody that the Zoom meeting has started.
Apologies for interrupting.
No. It's good to know if something was incorrect.
So forgive me, my name's Michael, and I've really been looking forward to this meeting. And if you'd be so kind, Mr. Speaker, if you could pronounce your name, because I want to be sure I understand how to pronounce it.
It's pronounced Noumane. Think about a Newman, but for French people.
Okay, so like Newman, just like the guy on Seinfeld as far as pronunciation.
Exactly. And I get that a lot. Yeah.
That's so easy. Thank you.
You're welcome. So yeah, and just so you know, the reason I'm still awake and going at 1 a.m. is because my wife and I, we had our first child, our first son about 2 months ago. So now we have completely lost track of whether it's morning, afternoon, or night. It's all the same here.
Wow, congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you, Maggie. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes,
So, yeah.
congratulations.
It doesn't get
That's
better.
awesome.
Thank you. Did you say it doesn't get better?
It does not get better.
Oh,
I
sure it
know,
does.
I know.
Yeah.
Last
Eventually
week
they
we
leave
were
home.
so happy. Yeah, last week it was the first time that he slept for 6 hours in a row. We were so happy, but this week it's only like 2 hours, 3 hours.
Oh.
Wait till he
Wakes up.
starts teething.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah. So, well, knocking on wood. We'll see what happens. Yeah.
And you're currently in France, correct?
Currently in France, and I'm leaving in 2 days to Oman. Oman, which is a country not very far from Dubai, because I'm going to start a new job over there at one of the universities. So a lot is happening right now.
Whoa.
Thank
New
you.
baby and new job.
Yeah, I know, right? Thank you, Carrie, for being one of my references. And
Anytime.
Yeah. So a lot is happening right now. So the plan is for me to go alone, and my wife will probably rejoin me with our son in 2 months. We're hoping to do all of his 4 months checks here in France, and then they'll probably rejoin me then. So yeah, so between month 2 and month 4, I'm not gonna see him grow up. How bad is this?
Oh.
But I mean, it's all for the best, I guess.
Will you be teaching?
Yes, I'll be teaching at one of the universities over there in Muscat. Muscat is the capital city, and yeah, it's gonna be fun to go back to teaching. I've been on and off teaching. I was in administration. I did some research. I started a little organization, so I did a little bit of everything, and now I'm going back to the basics. So yeah, I see one more person just signed up. So I believe right now, Carrie, that they all have the correct password, right?
Yes, they should. I don't know where the 789466. I was looking at my announcement, and I don't see that one, but I've got it out. That's the password. And
I think it was on the one that starts with one last time. The one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's so strange since I'm copying and pasting, but thanks for letting me know. I'm letting my other class know too. And here that one goes. Okay, so I've sent it out one more time. So Newman, okay, and we have some more students joining us. We're kind of a small but mighty group this term. But we have a great group, a busy group. But they are really excited to hear not only about kind of your journey in TEFL, because you have had a very interesting and great career in TEFL. So they're excited to hear about that because I think many of the students we have here are really preparing to go overseas, but they're also excited about the melting class and how you started that and what that's going to look like. We certainly are letting our students know it's a wonderful opportunity. So we're just very excited to have you. So we're recording. I hope that's okay with you, because then we'll be able to share it with the students who are not able to join us. I did schedule this on a day of football, which I scheduled it nice and early. Did not know that we'd have our first football game. So I did hear from a few students that are at this football game, but they're like, please record so we can watch it later. So we might be a smaller group now, but we'll certainly be sharing it with more of our students. So with that, it's already 7:07. So being respectful of your 1 o'clock in the morning time, I'll go ahead and give you the floor and let you get started with your presentation. So welcome and thank you for being with us.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And I have a little PDF I can show you afterwards. Now I'll just start by introducing myself and what I did to get where I am right now. So originally I am from France, and my parents are from Morocco, and I arrived in the US as an international student, as probably some of you. So I started my MA master's degree in TESOL, and at the same time I started being a teaching assistant in the English as a Second Language program at the University of Oklahoma. So that's where I spent about 9 years in Oklahoma. Love it, love the people there. And at the end of my master's degree, I started a PhD. One of my professors in TESOL recommended that I either try to get in a TESOL program in Canada, because they have really good TESOL programs over there in Toronto, or in a PhD in education, which is a little more general, depending on what I wanted to do afterwards. So I opted for the PhD in education. It's educational leadership and academic curriculum. But I specialized in second language acquisition. My PhD is more general than my master's. So I got my PhD. At the same time, I was still teaching in the ESL program in Oklahoma. During my PhD, I took a 1-year break to go teach in Saudi Arabia. It was not really a 1-year break because I did independent study in Saudi Arabia to earn credits for my PhD in Oklahoma, so I wouldn't be behind. Then I came back to Oklahoma. I stopped teaching ESL for 1 semester and I taught Spanish that semester. And to be honest with you, I taught Spanish because it was less hours. It was only 8 hours a week. And I was working on my dissertation, so I needed a little break, but I still needed my studies to be paid for. So I speak Spanish, I speak French, I speak English, I speak Moroccan Arabic. So then I got my PhD, and after my PhD, I went back to France to teach for a little bit. So I was teaching English in a law school in Paris, which was very interesting because it was different from what I've done before. So English in law school in Paris, and at the same time in Normandy, I was teaching in the literature and history program in English. So in France, when you take language studies, they focus on history of the language and literature of the language. That's how it works. It's not exactly the same as in the US. So I was doing 6 hours a week in Paris, and I think it was 9 hours in Normandy. We have way less hours when we teach in college in France, I believe. And then after that, fall 2016, I accepted a job at UCF Global, University of Central Florida, in the English Language Institute. I started as a lecturer. Then a year after that, I became assistant director a year after that, I was hesitating between transitioning to the degree seeking side. And this is when I got in touch with Dr. Nuda and Dr. Perminsky to see if I could teach a course there. And there was a course I was going to teach, but we didn't have enough students that semester specifically. And at the same time, my boss at the time at UCF Global offered me to be a project manager, because we had just gotten a partnership with the Ministry of Education from Saudi Arabia. We were going to host 60 Saudi educators, and we needed to design a program specifically for their needs. So I had to submit a proposal to my boss, and she said, okay, good, now you implement it. So then I became project manager for that program, the Kibarat program. I don't know if some of you have heard of it. After that, I became director of the department. That was my last year there for a year, and it was a crazy experience, amazing. I learned a lot of stuff, but very, very intense, different from teaching. And one of the things that's actually very interesting is a lot of teachers transition to a director position, but there's no real training to become a director. It's more like, okay, we look at your personality, we throw you in there, then you learn on the spot. And it's a great, experience, but it was very intense, I'm not gonna lie. Then after that, I came back to France last year. That was May 2020. I had just been married for 6 months then. So I decided to come here. My wife works in Geneva, Switzerland, but we live on the French side. So it's literally, when I go for a run in the morning, it takes me 9 minutes to cross the border to go to Switzerland. So I decided to come back here because her job was here. And then recently she gave birth to our first son. And we were looking for different things. And one of the things I've always thought of is, once I'm done with my experience in the US, I want to try going back to the Middle East again. And I know that after the Middle East, I'm going to try to go back to the US again. Anyways, so now I got, during this 1 year break, a lot of things happened. I'm just going to fast forward. I accepted a position at Sultan Qaboos University. It's the biggest university in Muscat, capital city of Oman. And the funny thing is, I heard of that university because I told you at the beginning of my story, I taught as a teaching assistant in Oklahoma when I was doing my master's and PhD. I was teaching in their program. And my boss at the time, the director of the English Language Institute in Oklahoma, we remained great friends. And she's been in Oman for 3 years. And she's the one who told me about the opportunity. She's the one who submitted my resume, etc. So out of nowhere, now I'm going to be the colleague of my former boss, basically. And funny enough, I realized that one of my ex-coworkers from Saudi Arabia, I told you when I was doing a PhD, I took a 1 year break in Saudi Arabia, actually works there too. So he's going to be my very small world. Anyways, so that's the fun part. Now, just going back to that 1 year break that I took in France this past year, I was supposed to not do anything, but somehow I did a lot. Before talking about the melting class, I actually finished writing a book. When I was in these different experiences, I kept kind of a journal of everything that was happening, teaching in Saudi Arabia, teaching in the US, teaching in France, teaching. So it's about teaching and society. And this year, I took the time to actually put this under the form of a book in French. Hopefully I'll translate it in English as well. And I'm going to publish it in a couple of months for free. What I'm trying to do here is really something new. I want to go more for getting the word out there of what we do as ESL teachers. It's not very easy all the time, but it's very fulfilling. So it's a book that I'm going to put under the format of a PDF of an ebook, and I'm just going to put it online and with a link free to download. So that's the one thing that I did. Another thing was creating the organization that's called the Melting Class with a couple of teachers, just because we didn't want to, for me, I wasn't doing anything. I mean, I wasn't working anywhere, but I still wanted to keep teaching. And I have a friend of mine in Haiti who told me, look, we have a lot of people here who are motivated to learn English. So why don't you use some of your time, 1 hour a week, and you teach them. And he wanted me to teach them through WhatsApp, the application WhatsApp, the messaging system. So I said, okay. And I would send a PDF document, which was basically a PowerPoint. And after each slide, I would leave a voice message on the WhatsApp application in the group for everybody to hear, with little exercises for people to try out. In the end, I was doing this for 3 different groups, and each group had about 200 to 300 students. So it was an, I don't know how to pronounce the word, asynchronous way of teaching. It was not teaching right then, right? People receive a lot of, Wednesday, it would happen on Wednesdays. They would receive the lesson that I would teach on Wednesday. They were at work doing different things. We leave the group open for discussion until Thursday night. So they had until Thursday night to check on, you know, the PowerPoint and everything and respond and ask their questions. Thursday night, we close it because it was just a lot. Then from Thursday night until the following week, I had the time to respond to most of the questions. It was very successful, and a lot of them asked for face-to-face classes. So this is how I started the Melting Class, which is teaching face-to-face on Zoom with volunteer teachers and students from all over the world. Now let me see if I can share a screen with you. I don't know if I'm allowed. Do you see a screen that I just shared now? Can you show me a thumb
yes.
up? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So this is basically what I show to the partners I'm trying to create partnerships with, so they understand what I do. So first of all, start with the basics. Classes are on Zoom. They happen on Sundays usually, because this is when people from different countries and different continents can be here at the same time. It's 1 hour and a half, and it's for 8 weeks. So people who volunteer for 8 weeks. And we have established 3 levels so far: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And the rest, I'll talk about it later. So before I dive into this, it's not a lot, but are there any questions or comments about what I talked about that's not related to TMC? Anything about my background? Any questions you may have? Yes.
I have one, only just because you said you can go 9 minutes into Switzerland. Do you ever get chocolate or cheese from there just to go to do that?
You know what? I'm actually gonna, let me see if I can do this in the chat, because I'm gonna give you the brand of the best chocolate ever. And I'm not kidding. I am not kidding. I have tried a lot. I love chocolate. Chocolate is my thing. If you can order some of this chocolate online, let me just try something like that. It's German. Lederer. I mean, you'll Google it, you'll find it. You type this with chocolate. And again, I'm not getting any commission from them. I'm just telling you that's the best chocolate I've ever had. It's pronounced Lederer, something like that. Either of these. And honestly, it's the best chocolate. So yeah, I go to Switzerland for chocolate, but for the cheese, the region where I am, it's really good. So I don't need to go there for cheese. Although I do buy cheese from Switzerland, I must say. Any other questions?
Yeah, yes. I just have a comment I want to make. I wasn't going to, but I listened to it as you were speaking, and when you said that you lived right outside Switzerland and you drove in, I was reminded that in 2019, right before the pandemic hit, my wife and I were able to go to Switzerland, and I remember being told that something about the taxes were less, or that there was this big influx. People came and go. Same with the trains that they. So it's kind of exciting to know that maybe I have more experience than I think I do, because obviously.
Of course,
these opportunities exist everywhere.
Which year did you? When was it that you went to Switzerland?
It was right before the pandemic. It was in October and November of 2019.
And the funny thing about Switzerland, well, it's in Europe, but not part of the European Union, so they have their own rules. During the pandemic, everything was closed in France. We had a lockdown. So what my wife and I would do, it's not really cheating, but we would go to Switzerland if we wanted to have coffee or to a restaurant, because everything was open over there. Each country, they had their own rules. And it's funny how literally you walk for 15 minutes and it's a different country.
Well,
It's interesting.
it's like all the countries, even the cities are. It's obvious that they used to be. The cities were like the big deal. So there's competition between these places that are like right next to each other. It's a whole different experience.
Yeah, and you know that in Switzerland they have actually three official languages. They have French, Italian, German, and of course English, pretty much everywhere, but French, Italian, German, and within the country you have, like you said, these different cities. They have different vibes depending on which culture they are influenced in, whether it's German, it's Italian or French. But one thing that I can tell you about Switzerland is when I was in Florida, I choose the places I go to depending on the natural landscapes and everything, among other things. So Florida, I went there for palm trees, the beach, and everything, the sun. When I arrived here, Switzerland, I fell in love with mountain activities, going to the mountain in the summer. For me, mountain was something that you go to only in the winter, but mountain in the summer, it's green. You have lakes that are very, you go for a hike for 3 hours. Once you get on top, you get to a lake, which is actually the snow from the winter that melted into a lake. It's beautiful. Switzerland is honestly one of the most beautiful countries I've visited. All of these things are hidden because you don't hear about it a lot, but amazing.
Now some people, I'll just interject because it relates to our class here. I've heard people mention that they are thinking about working in Europe. I've heard, I think Maggie, I think I'm right there. But I've heard other people say that it's very difficult to get a visa. And, for a guy like me, I'm a little bit older. I've heard that some countries, it's, you're not likely to get a job there if you're over a certain age. Do you have any suggestions, since you've worked so many different places? Do you recommend just trying everywhere, or do you have some ideas as to?
I'll give you a tip. I mean, there are a lot of things, of course, we can talk about depending on the countries you want to go to, but let's talk about Switzerland, because once I was in France, I was looking for opportunities in Switzerland.
Sure.
Getting a job, first of all, as a French citizen, I can work in Europe without a permit, apart from Switzerland. Switzerland, you need a working visa to work in there. You need a visa to live in there, right? So after talking to a lot of people in Switzerland, one of the things you may want to do is do a 1 year. It's not really studying. So for 1 year, you study and you teach just to convert your American degree into a European degree. Because as you know, I have an American degree. I don't have a European degree. I did my master's and PhD in the US. So I got accepted in a program in Lausanne. Lausanne is a city in Switzerland. And in that program, I was studying half of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning. And the rest of the week, it was kind of an internship where you observe a class and then you teach, and you're actually paid for teaching. And the reason I was attracted by Switzerland is for many reasons. First, one of them being where it is, landscape and everything. And another one, let's be transparent, is the salary. What I was getting paid for my internship was higher than what I would have been paid full-time in France. You know what I mean? Of course, life is more expensive in Switzerland. Some people decide to live in the French side, but long-term, I wanted to move to Switzerland for a lot of different advantages you get there. So one tip that I can give you is look into this 1 year program, because one of the easiest way to get a visa anywhere in the world is to be a student. From my experience, that's what I saw. Once you're a student and you get 1 foot in Switzerland, it's way less complicated to get a job there. Because one of the things you have to know about Switzerland is they have a very, how would I say that in a diplomatic way? I'm not going to say old population, but I just said it. So they have which means they need people to come work, but there's a very rough selection. If you want to work in a place like Geneva, it's almost impossible because it's packed. Everybody works in Geneva and lives in France. So they enjoy, the fact that life in France is cheap and they get a high salary from there. But if you go deeper in Switzerland, as you said, as I told you, Lausanne, one of these program, I can write it right here. That's the program I got accepted in. I got accepted in the program, but I just refused it because I'm going to Oman. I don't know if you remember this, but those were the two options. It's called Haute École Pédagogique. You have a couple of these. It translates literally to high school, not in the meaning of high school, but high school, high pedagogical school. So it's a school where you learn to teach. Because if you have a degree in TESL, a master's in TESL, that's all you need. You don't need a PhD. You can get in there for 1 year, half of the week you study, half of the week you're teaching, and they have programs in German, Italian, French, English. So you can check it out and see if maybe that can help. That would be a good way to start. Again, every country, they have a lot of ways to get in, and Switzerland is one of them, and it doesn't hurt to try it out. Sorry, my answer is always very long, but that's the teacher in me.
No, thank you.
I have two questions, but the first one is the one I was more curious about. You've taught in several different environments like law and I think you said a social studies class. In terms of a specific like group, did you prefer teaching on the online with just people that are wanting to learn the language alone, or in a classroom setting that's based on a subject matter?
That's very interesting. Actually, that's a very good question. And the law school in Paris was very challenging because I had no background in law whatsoever. So I had to learn what I was going to teach. I spent a very intensive summer before it started. But to answer your question, again, it has to do with my personality. The classes that really I prefer the most, it doesn't always have to do with the content of what I teach, but more with the people I have in front of me. So I love teaching in the US because my students were from all over the world. When you teach in France, you're going to have only French students, which is still okay, it's still fun. When I teach in Oman, it's going to be only Omani students. When I was in Saudi Arabia, only Saudi students. But when I was in UCF Global, I had students from the Middle East, South America, et cetera, et cetera. So personally, it's not so much as to what I teach, but I really like to have multicultural students in my class. So I would say that's what attracts me the most, actually. That's where I have the most fun.
Okay. My second question actually plays into that subject as well, is in terms of teaching styles and overall lessons. For me, what I am trying to do is teach long-term to students strictly English. And I know that sometimes the subject matter changes because you don't always have the option of strictly teaching like a EFL class or an ESL. In your opinion, is Europe a good country to go if you want to do that, versus if the availability is more for like subject matter classes like the law or social studies or whatever?
Is Europe a good place to go to if you want to do strictly language teaching?
Teach EFL.
Strictly teach EFL. My answer to this is, if you go to Europe, in terms of, how would I say that? If you want to go in a setting like at the university level where you teach subject matters or anything that is not EFL, this is when they're going to require specific degrees proper to these countries. So for example, Switzerland, you take the 1-year program. I was lucky to find a 1-year program. Most of them are 2 or 3. And if you go into EFL in Europe, the pros and cons is there will be less stability because in our field, there's, that's how it is. We depend on the student population, but it will be easier for you to find a position. However, if you go on the degree seeking side, each country will require their own degrees. In France, for example, you have to get a master's, plus you have to, how can I explain that? You have to pass a test that is not going to depend on your grade, but on your position of how well you did. Let me explain. For example, last year in France, in my field, they look at how many positions they have. They had, I'm going to say a random number. They had 100 teachers retiring in my field. They say, okay, this year everybody's going to take the test. We take the first 100 students who pass the test, like the best scores, which means you can have an 80% on your test, but maybe not pass it because there are 100 people who got 90%. Does it make sense? And in France, this is what they do for a lot of subjects, just because maybe we're a small country for a lot of people. So for example, if you go to medical school, this is what they do, and it's very harsh. So the pros is you go to college and it's I'm not going to say it's free. It's not very expensive, but the cons is they only select the number that they need that year. If you don't get
Well, it looks like, Noumane, I'm not sure if you can hear us, but you're frozen. Can anybody hear me?